He played a superhero on screen, but behind the mask, life wasn't so kind. From shattered careers to quiet heartbreak, every man who's worn the Spider-Man suit has faced battles far tougher than any villain. But among them all, one carried a pain that fame couldn't heal. And by the time the world realized it, he'd already learned how to hide it behind a smile. Being Spider-Man looks like a dream from the outside. The red suit, the fame, the fandom. But Peter Parker's curse followed each actor into real life. Great power, sure, but also great pressure. The weight of expectations. The fear of letting fans down. And that strange loneliness that comes when millions love you, but almost no one knows who you are without the mask. Tobey Maguire was the first to live that paradox. In 2002, he wasn't just an actor, he was the face of a new cinematic era. His Spider-Man wasn't snarky or overconfident. He was shy, vulnerable, and deeply human. Audiences didn't just watch Tobey's Peter Parker, they felt him. But what they didn't see was how that same vulnerability began to eat away at him once the spotlight turned harsh. After Spider-Man 3, the fame that had lifted him up started to smother him. He became the quiet figure Hollywood didn't quite know what to do with. The rumors began. Stories about temper issues, awkward behavior on set, and poker nights that spiraled into controversy. Whether those tales were exaggerated or not didn't matter. The damage was done. Tobey went from being Hollywood's most relatable hero to its quiet recluse. For years, he all but vanished from major roles. No Marvel cameos, no interviews, just silence. It's easy to forget now, but for a time, Tobey's downfall felt personal to fans. He was Spider-Man, not a billionaire playboy or a cosmic god, but a kid from Queens who just wanted to do the right thing. Watching him fade from fame felt like watching Peter Parker hang up the suit for good. There was tragedy in that, not scandal, not disaster, but quiet disillusionment, and maybe that's what hurt most. How ordinary it felt. Tobey didn't implode dramatically. He simply disappeared. The man who once carried the world on his shoulders retreated into anonymity. But if you look closely at him now, producing films quietly, raising his kids, staying out of the headlines, there's peace there too. Maybe his greatest victory was learning how to stop performing when the cameras stopped rolling. Then came Andrew Garfield. His Spider-Man was electric, witty, awkward, tender, everything fans wanted after Tobey's quiet gravity. But behind that energy was someone who felt things too deeply for his own good. Andrew wasn't just acting, he was becoming Peter Parker. Every interview, every red carpet moment, you could feel how much the role meant to him. But Hollywood doesn't always reward passion. It punishes it when things don't go perfectly. When The Amazing Spider-Man 2 underperformed, the studio didn't just end the franchise, they ended Andrew's dream. Overnight, his version of Peter Parker was shelved, his planned trilogy scrapped. He'd given everything to a role that the industry moved on from in a heartbeat, and that kind of heartbreak doesn't make headlines, but it lingers. Andrew later said in interviews that losing Spider-Man felt like losing a part of himself, that he'd put so much love into something that just evaporated. Around the same time, his personal life took its own blows. His relationship with Emma Stone ended after years of intense public attention. They remained kind to each other, but it was clear that fame had stretched them thin. Two artists who once shared the same dream suddenly had to walk different paths. But the real heartbreak hit years later, quietly, off-screen. In 2019, Andrew's mother died. The woman who'd supported his dream, who watched him rise from theater stages to superhero stardom, was gone. When he later spoke about her death during Tick, Boom interviews, his words broke people's hearts. "Grief is the unexpressed love you never got to give," he said. You could see it in his eyes. That pain never left. Every performance since has carried that same quiet ache, like he's still talking to her through his art. Andrew's tragedy isn't one of scandal or collapse, it's spiritual. He's the Spider-Man who lost more than a franchise. He lost people, time, innocence, and yet, somehow, he found beauty in that pain. When he returned in Spider-Man, No Way Home, You could feel it. That wasn't just nostalgia. It was healing. The way he saved Zendaya's MJ, that single tear after catching her. It wasn't just acting. That was grief finding closure. That was Andrew, the man, letting his pain breathe. But the modern Spider-Man story comes with a new kind of tragedy. Not the loss of fame, but the loss of self. Tom Holland grew up in the age of social media, where every move, every word, every relationship becomes public property. For Tobey, the fame came in magazines. For Tom, it comes in a million phone screens every second. And that's a different kind of battle. Tom became Spider-Man at 19. Imagine that, being a teenager playing a teenager, but with the pressure of an entire billion-dollar franchise on your shoulders. He was charming, funny, humble, everything Marvel could ask for. But the fame machine doesn't slow down for charm. It eats it. Tom started talking about burnout early on, saying he struggled to separate himself from the character. The lines between Peter and Tom blurred until he couldn't tell who was who. By 2023, after filming The Crowded Room, Tom admitted he was mentally and emotionally drained. The show's heavy themes took a toll on him, and he needed to step away from acting for a while. Fans were shocked. How could someone who looked so happy, so in control, be quietly crumbling inside? But that's the story behind almost every smile in Hollywood, the fight to stay afloat while pretending to have it all together. For Tom, the tragedy isn't collapse. It's the quiet pressure of never being allowed to be ordinary. Fame gave him everything, but it also took away anonymity, privacy, and peace. He once said that if he ever stopped loving the craft, he'd walk away for good. And when he said it, it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a plea. Each of these men wore the same mask, but it revealed something different each time. Tobey's mask hid burnout. Andrew's hid grief. Tom's hides exhaustion. All three carried the weight of being everyone's hero while trying not to lose themselves in the process. There's something strangely poetic about the fact that every Spider-Man actor ended up living a version of Peter Parker's story. All three of them learned the same brutal lesson, that heroism doesn't protect you from pain. In fact, sometimes it invites it. Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland each stepped into that red and blue suit thinking it was just a role. But when the cameras stopped, they realized the role doesn't come off that easily. The fame, the responsibility, the fan expectations, they cling to you. You start to wonder if you're still yourself or just a character everyone else wants you to be. For Tobey, that realization came too late. He went from being one of Hollywood's most beloved faces to someone the industry didn't quite know where to place anymore. There was this quiet sadness in his disappearance. Not a scandal, not a meltdown, just fading. After Spider-Man 3, his career slowed to a crawl. Projects fizzled. Public appearances vanished. He tried poker, producing A Quieter Life. And yet, every time his name came up, people didn't talk about his future. They talked about how he used to be Spider-Man. That label never left him. Imagine that. Creating something so iconic that it erases everything else you are. But maybe the world finally saw the real Tobey when he returned for No Way Home. Older, calmer, grounded. Not the nervous prodigy or the headline magnate, just a man who had made peace with his past. When he said the line, "You're amazing," to Andrew, it wasn't just Peter Parker comforting another version of himself. It was Tobey Maguire, the veteran, telling Andrew Garfield what Hollywood never told him enough. You did good. You mattered. It was meta, emotional, and somehow healing for everyone watching. Andrew Garfield's tragedy always felt different. It wasn't about falling out of favor. It was about carrying grief that fame couldn't cure. He lost his mother, the person who'd been his anchor, right before Tick Tick, Boom, began filming. And instead of collapsing, he turned that heartbreak into art. That performance, the laughter, the tears, the exhaustion, it was his grief, disguised as a song. He later said, "Every frame is a love letter to my mom." That's not acting. That's a son still trying to say goodbye. When Andrew cried in No Way Home after saving MJ, it wasn't just redemption for his Spider-Man. It was therapy for himself. The internet made memes about it, but the emotion was real. He once couldn't save Gwen Stacy, on screen, and, in a way, off screen too. That scene was more than closure. It was a release. The kind of healing that only storytelling can give. And that's why Andrew's tragedy feels so human. His pain didn't make him bitter. It made him empathetic. Every interview since has carried that same quiet gratitude. It's as if he knows pain will always walk beside him, but he's learned to hold its hand instead of fighting it. Then there's Tom Holland, the modern face of Spider-Man, the kid who grew up too fast. Fame hit him like a web to the face. He was suddenly everywhere. Interviews, red carpets, memes, talk shows, Marvel press tours. The kid from Billy Elliot was now the centerpiece of a billion-dollar franchise. But what no one saw was the fatigue creeping in. The anxiety that comes from being everyone's idea of perfect. Tom has talked openly about his struggles, about needing therapy, about the pressure to stay positive, about how acting sometimes feels like living multiple lives at once. During the crowded room, he said he learned about the human mind in ways that left him broken. He wasn't exaggerating. The show's themes, trauma, identity, mental health, hit him personally. After wrapping production, he admitted that he needed time away from the industry to recover. Think about that. A global superstar, adored by millions, choosing silence over spotlight. That's courage, but it's also tragic, because it shows how heavy fame can be, even when it looks like a dream from the outside. Tom once said in an interview that he struggles with the idea of being famous forever, that sometimes he wishes he could just live a normal day without being recognized, without people projecting expectations onto him. He's still young, still figuring out where the line is between Tom and Spider-Man. And that, in itself, is a quiet tragedy. Growing up without ever getting to be anonymous. So, who among them has the most tragic real-life story? The truth is, tragedy looks different depending on where you stand. For Tobey, it was isolation, the loneliness that fame left behind. For Tom, it's the pressure to stay perfect while the world watches his every move. But Andrew, his story hits deeper. His tragedy was love and loss, both personal and professional. He lost his dream role, his partner, and his mother, all within a few short years. And yet, he turned every wound into meaning. He never lashed out, never played the victim. He simply kept creating, kept searching for beauty inside pain. In a way, Andrew Garfield became the most Peter Parker of them all. Not because of the suit, but because of the suffering. He was hopeful, sensitive, and deeply human, trying to do good in a world that doesn't always reward it. The real-life Spider-Man who couldn't save everyone, but still kept showing up. Each of these men carried their own kind of tragedy, but what unites them is resilience. They all stumbled, they all hurt, but they never stayed down. And that's the essence of Spider-Man. Not super strength, not web shooters, but the ability to rise again after every fall. Tobey learned to find peace outside the noise. Tom is learning how to exist beyond the fame. And Andrew turned pain into poetry. 3 men, 1 legacy, and behind every frame of those films is a story much heavier than the suit they wore. It's easy to idolize heroes on screen. It's harder to realize that the people behind them bleed, cry, and break just like the rest of us. Maybe that's why Spider-Man resonates so deeply. Because he's not a god. He's not untouchable. He's just a person, trying his best in a world that often feels too heavy to hold. So, who had the most tragic real-life story? Maybe the real tragedy is that they all had to learn the same lesson the hard way. That being a hero doesn't mean you're invincible. It means you're brave enough to keep going even when you're not okay. If this story gave you a new way of seeing your favorite heroes, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned for more stories about the people behind the masks. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the ones on screen. They're the ones that happen when the cameras stop.